Can I respond here?
Yes.
Your Honor, we were able to locate an expert that's specifically an expert on email forensics in Microsoft Outlook. And we did not obtain that person until last week. And I did not have a report in my hands until Thursday evening, which I didn't read until the morning before I sent it on to the prosecutor. So this is a new witness. And I told the prosecutor that I don't know if we're going to call him because it depends on whether Detective Parvis is familiar and is able to answer my questions on the various indicators of this email that we're going to get into. So, but if the court is not inclined to let me follow this, I won't. But I just want to be able to have the witness here in court to observe, since he might be required at the next level if it goes there.
But your questioning Detective Parvis is going to relate to that new report.
It is, but I'm not going to ask him about the report. I'm just going to ask him about the concepts, Your Honor, and ask him what he saw in the artifacts that he looked at in the server log and other places. So I'm just asking the information. I'm not going to show him the report or ask him about the report.
Well, I guess I'm at a bit of a loss as to how you're going to do that without referencing the report.
It's just concepts and things that Detective Parvis.
Right. Okay. I hear you, but are these new concepts?
Well, I haven't had.
And are they new concepts that one would have to prepare to address them in a form? I mean, part of my concern is, counsel, is that if you're going to do that, then Detective Parvis's testimony could be misconstrued in terms of his response.
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, let's say there's something in the report that says something. I can imagine a circumstance where you ask the question, Detective Parvis answers the question based upon a certain understanding. That answer is then locked in. But then later on, there is this other really understanding that had that context been put on, there may have been a different response.
I don't intend to ask anything out of context. I intend to explain my questions and ask him about context, but what he saw and what he didn't see, that's all.
Right, but it's going to be, I get what you're saying, but the context of some of your questioning is going to be based upon the experts, your experts' analysis, right?
He told me about concepts and he told me what he saw and didn't see. I want to ask him what he saw, and I think I can question him about what.
Well, no. Your expert, well, just in terms of just what you just said, your expert told you about what he didn't see, what he did see, right?
I want to ask him if he saw those things.
Well, I get you, counsel, but what I'm saying is your expert is giving you the framework for your questioning, right?
He didn't write my questions. He told me about concepts and what he saw. And
say that he wrote your questions.
But I don't even know.
That's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking, let's try it this way. You know to ask the questions that you're asking because of your expert's analysis. Nothing wrong with that, but that's how you know what questions and what areas to probe into. That's fair, right? I mean, because that happens with any, right? Right. So if there's a report, a new report that just gets to the prosecutor, because let me back up. There was obviously a previous report, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
That then generated another report from Detective Parvis, right?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Yeah, because that was the last part of the question.
Yes.
Now there's going to be your questions to Detective Parvis based upon a new report. And let me just ask this. I haven't seen the report or anything. Does that new report come to the same conclusions as your previous report?
Yes, but for different reasons.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. It comes to the same conclusion, but for different reasons. I think it would be highly unfair as we sit here today to, how long was this report?
I have a
I
copy.
think it's 15 pages, Your Honor.
Okay.
So the digital forensic report itself is 13 pages. Included with it was also the person's CV, as well as just a copy of an email correspondence.
And you're saying you just got this report
Thursday,
Thursday.
but evening, I believe. I'll double check. But again, we don't have to call the expert.
Right. But that's not the only issue, counsel. Part of the issue is you calling the expert. Part of the issue is, and I'm not saying anybody would be doing anything wrong, the way in which you frame the question, the context in which you're asking the question, which is going to be framed by, I would presume, that report. And then the response, the response to the question may have significant bearing. Let me strike that. The context of your question may mean something very different to Detective Parvitz, which may then guide his answer. And so what I don't want is I don't want responses that are going to then be misconstrued in some way, especially when we're talking about expert testimony.
Can I respond? So we have an expert on the stand, an expert that presumably knows about the concepts I'm going to ask him about. I'm simply asking him about concepts such as, if you look at the server log, what was the source for the transmittal? Was it a certain type of source, or was it some other source? And I'm simply asking him what he observed. I don't know how this is unfair to an expert. And certainly if something is misconstrued or it needs to be clarified, the prosecutor can do that also.
Well, that's part of the problem. Certainly they could do that, but they've had the report for what, 3 days?
Got it almost at lunchtime on Friday. It's Tuesday, just about 2 o'clock. So no, I have not had time to read through it, Your Honor. Unfortunately, this is not my only matter that I have to work on.
And also, counsel, that you say that, let me ask this, because it may have been your intention, it may not have been. As I understand it, you had indicated to the people you were going to call this expert today.
I think he said he may call me. Yes.
Okay, May. Okay.
But I don't have to, and I won't. I just don't know how I could have my cross-examination curtailed by the fact that I got some information.
By what?
By the fact that I got information from someone who knows the topic. So, for instance, if this were like a skid mark case, the issue is how long was the skid mark? And if an expert told me, hey, ask them this question, and I came in and asked the question, that's not unfair, and that's not, the defendant has a right to cross-examine, as you know. And so I think that right to
It would, counsel, that's a very simplistic analogy to this, because I don't think this isn't just a skid mark. If it were just a skid mark, then okay, you could do that. You're actually talking about rather complex things that then have to be arranged in a certain way to come to some type of conclusion. And that's part of the problem. So, Ms. Lonnie.
I just want to say that the people are not attempting to curtail the cross-examination of Detective Parvis. in general. It's just with the late disclosure of new information that myself nor the detective have had time to review, it does not seem that the way forward today is to allow that. Now, if that is the hope, is to cross-examine with some of this new information, I'm sure we can find another date that allows everybody to be ready for it. But trial by surprise, the people do not believe is fair to either side. And having a hearing that conducts itself with sort of last second information that doesn't leave either side leaves one side unadequately or inadequately prepared to move forward does not seem to serve the interests of justice.
Your Honor, I didn't even have to give her a copy of this report. I could have just come in and asked my question. So I don't understand why me being upfront and trying to say, because I'm trying to convince the prosecutor to drop this case. Because I don't think it's my client.
Counsel, I understand. I'm
trying to share.
I'm not getting into anybody's strategy about why they're doing what they're doing. What I am getting into right now, though, is whether you should have, you did, right? And so then the question becomes, how do I balance this to make sure that not only you get a chance to ask questions fairly and get a proper response, but at the same time, also making sure that it's not mistaken. I mean, I also, counsel, I'll just say, I think it also behooves you not to have the responses misunderstood, right? Because I don't care what anybody tries to say about the simplicity of your questions. I think you're going to be asking questions based on that report. Get it? Nothing wrong with that. But I also think, much as the prosecutor might be concerned that a response that comes from Detective Parvis is subject to being misconstrued because he hasn't read the report, you're also may have a question that you want a response to that Detective Parvis isn't going to be able to say, well, I didn't read that report that you're talking about. So
my response to that, Judge, is that if I ask a question and he isn't sure of the context, or he can easily qualify his answer and say, yes, well, it depends on all these different things. And if he hasn't seen any report, then he could do that.
Certainly you could. But the problem is the universe that the question is being answered in now has just expanded. And
can I respond to that last part?
Sure.
I don't think it's expanded, Judge, because it's all going to be based on a server log that they had since 2023. They had the information. They should have looked at it. They should have understood it, and they did. They misconstrued it. And I want to ask questions about that without giving necessarily Detective Parvis a chance to try to figure out some way around it. Honestly, and in fact, I didn't even hold back. I gave the report to them on Friday as soon as I was able to read it and give it to them. I did not hold back on the report. And by the way, I have Mr. Greenberg. He's in court today, the fellow who wrote the report. If you have any, if you want to ask him about the timing, but I assure you that I did not hold back on this report.
I'm not saying that you are. That's not my issue.
We just really don't want to put this over. This is what Ms. Carey's did there.
What?
We don't want to put this over, that's all I'm saying.
All right, I get that. But I also set aside a half a day because you told me that you wanted to do whatever. I get this when I walk in. And regardless of whether one wants to or not, I'm going to do
of course,
make sure that it's a fair proceeding. That's what I'm going to do. So, Ms. Lundy, have you had an opportunity, and probably not, I just want to make sure to analyze even the CV?
It's Barely, Your Honor. I've glanced through it. I've looked at some of the work history and a little bit of the education. Detective Parvis and I had one phone call Friday around in the lunch hour I let him know that it was coming. There was a new thing. He informed me he was in a week-long training last week and did not have a chance to look at it. And then I think we spoke again today before court. But other than that, I've just literally skimmed. I haven't had a good opportunity to analyze any of it.
And just looking at it, if one had the time, how much time, if I decided to go that way, would one need to be able to adequately have it, understand it, and respond?
May I have a moment? I am completely unavailable next week as I'm currently scheduled to do a week-long murder trial in front of Judge Conlon with Emmons. So I'm not available next week. I could actually look at the week of 14th to the 21st, but the challenge too is Detective Parvis currently, as he shared with me, and I asked if it was okay if I shared mission. He is currently 6 months behind. There's no new work with CSAM cases, CSC cases, homicide cases, robberies, armed robberies, all sorts of different things requiring forensic analysis. So I think we're looking at August for us both to be ready.
So what, rather than indicating the exact day, between the time of, or you told me when you received it, when did you request this expert analyze anything?
I didn't. It was a fellow who came forward who lives in the township, right? Lives in Scioto Township. The expert is from Scioto Township. He came forward and provided the reports to my client, who provided them to me. So that's how it happened. And I didn't.
Gotcha.
So it's not
okay. It's not like you went out and hired an expert.
He's not a hired expert right at this point. He's a concerned citizen that knew that he is an expert, but he wanted to provide his.
Well, so that I'm clear. The citizen of Scioto reached out to your client.
I don't know how that worked, but I can ask him. He's here if you want to.
Well, I'm just trying to figure out how it came about and when it came about.
Can I have a moment here?
Sure. Counsel, when you're talking, you may want to hit so that it has to flash. It has to be green, so you have to hold it. There we go.
Thank you. I think I understand.
Right.
So my client had FOIA some information. She did a FOIA to get information, and she found an email that contained additional server information. That
hold on. Your client did a FOIA to whom?
To Washington County Sheriff. No, sorry.
To Scioto, can I speak?
Yeah, that's fine. To Scioto
Township. Going back a couple of years, and I found an email from our IT, Chris Bailey, to N1 Discovery stating, here is all the information. N1 Discovery is what Scioto Township had hired an expert forensic, and it was the same information that they provided to the sheriff department. And this was back in early 2024. And I didn't know about this. Apparently the sheriff had it based on Chris Bailey's email to this person with N1 Discovery.
Okay, I don't want evidence of anything. I'm just trying to figure out, you get that information. What did you then do with that information?
I found the information and I had questions. So I called Jonathan because he is an expert in Outlook and Microsoft 365. I didn't know what I was looking at.
Jonathan is the person that prepared this report.
Mr. Greenberg.
He's the one that did the newest report, Judge.
The newest, right. That's what I'm saying.
Gave me the information to ask the questions today, like I said.
Okay, all right. Court is standing in brief recess. I'll come back and give you my decision as to whether or not we'll proceed today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
All right.